My son, Billy Ray, laid a hand on me. I knew the line was crossed when the silence in my kitchen didn't smell like pine and coffee, but like finality. So I went to the freezer, pulled out the Jimmy Dean sausage, and decided that his last breakfast in my house would be the most delicious, stone-cold taste of justice he'd ever swallow. The air in Harmony Creek, Georgia is thick and sweet, even in the cool hours before dawn. It smells of damp pine needles and the promise of a hot day. To me, Martha Sue Collier, it just smells like home. A home that's been mine for 65 years and one I thought I'd share with my boy until my last breath. I was up before the chickens as usual, but this morning was different. My bones ached with a deep, humiliating chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I walked slow, not like my normal brisk pace, tracing the rim of the kitchen counter with my fingertips. Every movement was deliberate, a ritual of normalcy designed to smother the shame burning in my gut. Last night, last night, it wasn't a fight you could point to on a calendar, mind you. It was just the final ugly crescendo of 3 years of disappointment. Billy Ray, my handsome strapping boy, 42 years old and still wearing the same tired jacket he wore when he left his last job, he was back for the 4th time this year. This time it was the usual script, the whiskey on his breath, the shaking hands, the demand for money I didn't have and even if I did, wouldn't give him to feed his habit. "Mama, I just need a start," he'd slurred, his eyes red and small, the eyes of a stranger. "Just $50 until Tuesday." I stood my ground by the worn oak dining table, the same table where he did his first-grade homework, and asked me about God. "Billy Ray, you've had 5 starts this year, and I'm done. You can stay in my house, but you cannot drain me dry, honey. That well is empty." That's when it happened. That sudden, frightening explosion of fury that can only come from a desperate man who has run out of excuses. He didn't raise his voice. He just got terrifyingly quiet. He leaned in close, and I saw the betrayal in his eyes, the realization that his own mama, the softest touch he'd ever known, had finally put up a wall. He didn't swing, he didn't use his fist. He just opened his palm and shoved me. Hard. I'm 65. I'm solid, but I'm not fast. The force of it caught me off balance and I stumbled back against the china cabinet. I didn't fall, but the sickening thud of my shoulder against the glass shook every heirloom dish we owned. The sound was loud enough to rattle the foundation of the house, loud enough to stop his breath cold. He looked at his hand, then at me. And in that second, the fear in his eyes wasn't that of a son who'd hurt his mother, but of a criminal who'd been caught. He didn't apologize. He just turned and stumbled up the stairs to his room. I stood there, tears blurring the image of the dusty ceramic rooster on the shelf. The physical pain was just a dull ache. The spiritual pain was what dropped me to my knees. My son, my flesh and blood, had laid a hand on me. He'd crossed the line that separates a troubled boy from a dangerous man. This morning the pain was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about survival, about justice. I went straight to the freezer, not for ice, but for the Jimmy Dean sausage. If a man's last meal in his mama's house is going to be memorable, it ought to be the best damn southern breakfast he ever ate. I started on the grits first. Not the quick kind either. The stone-ground kind, simmered low and slow with a pinch of salt, and then enriched with butter and a splash of heavy cream until they reached that perfect, trembling consistency. I fried the sausage until it snapped and sizzled, filling the house with a smell that used to mean safety and Sunday morning. Next, the biscuits. I kneaded the dough with a fierce, controlled energy, flattening out the bitterness of the night before. I made them huge and flaky, cutting them with the same round cutter I've used since 1980. I cracked eggs, scrambling them with milk and pepper. The whole time I worked in silence. The silence didn't smell of dust this morning. It smelled of finality. While the biscuits baked and the clock ticked closer to 8:30, the hour Billy Ray usually shuffled down, red-eyed and ready to start the apology routine, I did two things. First, I went to my purse. I pulled out the envelope I had prepared a month ago. I always kept it ready just in case. Inside was a cashier's check, enough for a bus ticket to a city 3 states away and 2 weeks in a cheap motel. It wasn't charity, it was severance. Second, I walked to the phone, the old rotary phone that still sits on the wall next to the pantry. I dialed the number for the sheriff's office. Deputy Johnson answered. He's known Billy Ray since he was in Cub Scouts. Sheriff's office? Johnson's familiar drawl came over the line. It's Martha Sue Collier, Johnson, down on Sycamore Lane. My voice was steady, maybe a little too steady. Morning, Miss Martha Sue. Everything all right? No, son. Not a thing is all right. I need the sheriff to swing by about 9 o'clock, just to have a word with my boy, Billy Ray. Last night he laid a hand on me, shoved me pretty good. I didn't mince words. I didn't sugarcoat it. I just stated the fact. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Johnson's tone shifted. It hardened, became purely official. Understood, Miss Martha Sue. We'll be there. 9 o'clock sharp? You stay safe now. I hung up the phone. It was done. The irrevocable step. I had called the law on my own child. The ultimate betrayal in a small town where family business stays inside the walls. But I was done being protected by those walls. At 8:50 a.m., I set the table. 2 plates. The table was dressed in the usual simple blue gingham cloth. I stacked the biscuits high in a basket, poured the coffee, and ladled the golden grits into 2 bowls. Everything looked perfect, a picture of southern domestic bliss. It was a lie. This wasn't comfort food, it was a Trojan horse. At 8:55 a.m., Billy Ray shuffled down the stairs. He looked exactly as I expected, rumpled, ashamed, but already gearing up for the manipulative dance of repentance. Morning, Mama, he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. Morning, Billy Ray, I said, my voice flat, professional. I pointed to the food. Eat your breakfast. It's going to be cold soon. He sat down, immediately diving into the food. He ate fast, desperate for the familiar comfort. The salt and butter of the grits, the density of the sausage, the taste of a home he didn't deserve to disrespect. I sat across from him. I didn't eat. I just sipped my black coffee, watching him chew. Mama, he finally started, his mouth full of biscuit. I am so sorry about last night. I lost it, and I am deeply ashamed. I never meant to hurt you. It was the drink talking. I set my mug down gently. The click of the ceramic against the saucer echoed loudly in the small room. The drink isn't wearing your jacket, Billy Ray. The drink isn't my son. You did that, and you knew what you were doing. My voice didn't tremble. That's what 40 years of motherhood teaches you, how to project calm when you're screaming inside. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. I made you this breakfast for a reason, because I still love the boy you were. I love the memory of the son who respected me, the man I tried to raise. But that man is gone, and the one sitting across from me is dangerous. I slid the small envelope across the table. It came to rest right next to his plate of half-eaten scrambled eggs. In there, I explained, my eyes finally meeting his, is enough money for you to get out of Harmony Creek. A bus ticket and 2 weeks of room and board in Augusta. You take this and you get out of my life, Billy Ray. You go and you fix yourself, far away from me. Don't come back until you are the man I mourned losing. His face went pale. He stopped chewing. He saw the cold, resolved steel in my eyes. He saw the end of the easy ride. Mama, you can't be serious. You wouldn't do this to me. I'm your son. He reached across the table, his hand grasping for mine. I withdrew my hand immediately, placing it firmly in my lap. No, son. I am doing this for me. And maybe, just maybe, it's the only decent thing left for me to do for you. Just then, the screen door rattled. Knock, knock. It was exactly 9 o'clock. Billy Ray looked toward the sound, then back at me, terror replacing shame. He knew. In a small town, the sheriff only comes calling when he's been called. I stood up, walked to the screen door and opened it. Sheriff Barnes stood on my porch, hat in hand, a respectful but grave look on his face. Behind him was Deputy Johnson. "Morning, Martha Sue, we got your call. Is Billy Ray inside?" Sheriff Barnes asked, his voice low. "He is, Sheriff," I confirmed, stepping aside and gesturing to the kitchen table where my son sat frozen, the half-eaten breakfast now cold and congealing on the plate. He finished his breakfast, and now he can have his justice. I watched as the sheriff walked in, his boots squeaking softly on the linoleum. I didn't intervene. I didn't cry. I didn't soften the blow. Billy Ray saw the ticket envelope, the cold food, and the 2 officers standing over him. He knew. This wasn't just a consequence. It was an eviction, the final severing of the tie he had abused. As Sheriff Barnes quietly read him his rights, not on a charge of assault, but on the outstanding warrants for theft that I had, until now, chosen to ignore, I stood in the doorway, blocking the sun, feeling the warmth on my face. It hurt more than the shove. It was the most agonizing decision of my life, but it was also the most righteous. Love, I finally understood, meant drawing the line, even if it cuts you clean in half. I closed the door after they led him out, watching the patrol car disappear down Sycamore Lane. The silence returned to the kitchen, but this time, it was different. It wasn't the scent of an unopened possibility. It was the sharp, clean smell of freedom. I walked back to the table, scraped the cold food into the trash, and for the first time in 3 years, sat down and breathed a quiet, cleansing sigh of relief. The table was set for one, and for once that was enough.